Are you late? No, we're just getting started. We're just getting started. I've been streaming with the Big Root the last couple of days, and I've had, you know, regular viewers, first-time chatters, competitive players come in the chat and be like, do you think this would be good with Root? What about Flail Axe with Root? It seems like a lot of you guys don't actually understand how this item works. When there's mass confusion, aka at least 10 people are confused, that's a good time for us to sit down and make some content and do some edumacating. All right, let's get started. What is Big Root? It's a held item. The item itself gives you 450 HP at max level. So it's a good item to invest your levels into. I would say you could get up to 20 and you're still gonna get the plus 20% recovery from self-healing. Any points after that is just more additional base HP, which is good. You like HP, all right? Here are some Pokemon that I would probably recommend trying it out on first, but what is self-healing, all right? This says 20% from self-healing. This is where a lot of the confusion comes in. What the hell is self-healing? So for the purposes of Big Root, the table on the left is going to explain to you which ones actually will benefit from the Big Root and what's considered self-healing. So your moves that might heal you, think like Bullet Punch, Scissor, also not explicitly written there, but your passive ability or your boosted autos, anything within the base of your kit that actually actively heals you. So Lapras's boosted auto, Scissor's Bullet Punch, Snorlax's Unite move or Snorlax's Rest, things like that. That's considered self-healing. Lifesteal from your auto attack. So if you're playing an ADC like Cinderace, Decidueye, Dragapult, characters that have baseline lifesteal, Garchomp, etc., that lifesteal will be enhanced by Big Root. Spell Vamp, similar to Lifesteal. Some mages get it at level 5, some get it at level 9. That'll also be improved by Big Root. Items like Shell Bell, Potion, Focus Band, and Leftovers. These items, their healing will be improved by Big Root as well. Something I didn't write here, if you want to be technical, there's some items that provide you with a stat called HP over 5 seconds, where it gives you like a teeny heal every 5 seconds. For whatever reason, that thing doesn't get upgraded with Big Root, but it's so small, you'll almost never notice it. So if you see that information anywhere, I would choose to ignore it, but that's up to you. When you score, right? Some people don't even know this, or maybe you have noticed this. When you score, I believe you get a 10% HP heal every single time you score. That gets improved by Big Root, so that goes up to 12%. And it's pretty noticeable, actually, especially on the tanks. And then one that I had to make sure I tested because I felt like it was working, but I wasn't entirely sure, is when you get Regice, it gives you a 5% heal every 3 seconds or 5 seconds, I forget. I think it's 5. That gets improved to 6% because it's a 20% increase. So nice for Regice. Things that aren't self-healing, picking up citrus berries around the map. That's one that a lot of people ask. Nope, that doesn't count. Passive recovery from pads. So when you're standing on pads, that healing that you get, like on the outer pads, it's like 200. That doesn't get buffed. Slowbro's passive ability, in addition to Slowbro's amnesia or telekinesis. The way Slowbro's passive works is it kind of delays the damage you take and it spreads it out over the next couple seconds, and it becomes this like blue HP bar, and your moves and damage can recover that blue HP bar, but it's not technically a heal. It's a good time to mention that, you know, things like that Slowbro passive are also unaffected by anti-heal, but some of the other things on the not self-healing will be affected by anti-heal. Healing from your allies. So if a Blissey soft boils you or if a Comfy's healing you, your Big Root isn't gonna give you more healing. If they have Big Root on and they heal you, they're not gonna heal for more either. If you're looking for an item on a support to improve the healing you do to your allies, you're looking for Rescue Hood, not Big Root. When you KO a wild Pokemon, you get a small HP over time buff for the next 1.5 seconds. That also doesn't get buffed by Big Root. And then any form of shields, whether they're your own shields, pad shields, whatever, shields aren't considered healing. So that doesn't work either. So a couple things, I see some people typing in the chat, Mime Power Swap. The swap that you swap to an ally, the healing you do to yourself is buffed. The healing you do to your ally is not buffed. And any moves, any supporter moves that heal you and an ally simultaneously, Moonlight, Soft Boiled, etc., Pollen Puff, the heal to yourself will be improved. The heal to your allies will not be improved. All right, so you signed up here to learn the math, and you're like, Inder, where's the math? I thought you were gonna teach us the math. Let's talk about the math. So in my opinion, there's 2 items in the game that directly compete with Big Root. They're Drain Crown and Resonant Guard. And this is where you kind of have to do a little bit of math to be able to figure out what kind of the difference is here. So let's hop out of our slides here and go to a really helpful website, UNITE, just so we can remind ourselves on some of the stats from these items. So Big Root, 20% extra healing. We'll start with Drain Crown. Drain Crown's 15% lifesteal. Now, from a glance, you might be like, oh, 15% is less than 20%, so Big Root's just a better item. No, okay? Here's why. This 15% you gain is a stat in your stat bar that we call lifesteal. You gain 15% lifesteal. You don't improve your lifesteal by 15%, you gain 15% lifesteal. So let's take a Pokemon that has baseline lifesteal. We'll go Dragapult, for example, okay? Dragapult at level 13 has 15% lifesteal. With Drain Crown equipped, this isn't going to be, an additional, it won't be an improvement of 15%, it'll be an additional 15%, so you'll go to 30%. So you can think of it as Drain Crown on Dragapult improves your baseline lifesteal by 100%, whereas Big Root would only improve it by 20% or 1.2, which would be a 3%, differential here, as opposed to a 15%, which makes Drain Crown 5 times better on Dragapult than Big Root. Okay, well, we'll illustrate it here for visual learners. Let me do my best to draw the Big Root. This is a math class, all right, not a drawing class. I need a thicker brush. This is my Big Root. Is it good? That looks like Big Root, right? Well, that's a Big Root. And then on this side, we'll draw the Drain Crown. Oh, fill tool. Someone should have reminded me that existed. All right, there's the Drain Crown. Okay, we'll use Flail-Lax as an example because Flail-Lax is one that I guess people get a little bit more confused on. So let's go to Flail-Lax. Snorlax, no matter what level you are, has no baseline lifesteal. Flail, I'm not gonna bore you by reading all of this, doesn't give you any lifesteal, except for when you get the level 11 Flail Plus upgrade, or when you're below 40%, you gain 30% lifesteal, okay? So we go here for Snorlax, right? Snorlax has baseline 30% lifesteal, right? Baseline 30% lifesteal. With Drain Crown equipped, you would gain plus 15, right? So you'd go to 45% lifesteal. With Big Root, you would gain a 20% buff to your healing output. That would make your lifesteal 36%, right? So it's really easy for you if you do just a little bit of math. You don't even have to really use a calculator, or calc for short, right? Calc for short times 1.2, right? 36. Simple. 45 is bigger than 36. Also, the benefit of Drain Crown in this case is that 1, it works on your lifesteal all throughout the game. So you get it at level 1, at level 5. The moment you skill Flail, you'll already have some lifesteal. Flail lifesteal baseline at level 11 only activates when you're below 40%, right? Drain Crown would give you lifesteal throughout your entire health bar duration. And yeah, the biggest thing is you don't have to wait till you're level 11. Now, the other part, the downside, right, if you want to make a fair comparison for Big Root, is that Big Root will improve Snorlax's healing from rest, right? So until you hit level 7, where you would select either block or yawn, your rest healing would be improved. Your unite move healing would be improved. And if you run potion, your potion healing would be improved. So that's where you have to make that choice. You could obviously run both. I wouldn't recommend probably running either, to be honest, on Lax. But if you wanted a recovery item for Flail-Lax, Drain Crown would be a better choice, okay? I'll go through some other examples real quick as well. Let's go with Dragapult. This is another interesting one. So Dragapult, we said 15% lifesteal, but Dragon Dance gives you an additional 25% while you're flying, right? So that gets you up to 40% lifesteal. With 40% times 1.2, is that still enough to beat Drain Crown? No, you get only 8%. In fact, I think you'd have to have like, what, 75% lifesteal? Yeah, you'd need to have more than 75% lifesteal for Big Root to beat Drain Crown. You can see right here, right? 75% lifesteal is when you finally get that 15% marker from Drain Crown, from the Drain Crown versus Big Root differential. So yeah, if you're playing an auto attack Pokemon, right? If you're playing an auto attack Pokemon and you want to improve your recovery, the chances are Drain Crown will outperform Big Root. Sometimes you don't want to play either, but if you wanted to play one, at least play the right one. Now, there is an exception, as there's always exceptions to the rule, right? Is Azumarill. My intuition also told me that Drain Crown should just be better on Azu, right? But if we take a deeper dive into Azu, it is a Pokemon that gains some lifesteal, right? 10% lifesteal. But for Whirlpool, obviously it's not an auto attack oriented build. Drain Crown would just be worse than Big Root. But even for Aqua Tail, the math starts to get a little muddy, okay? And you have to really pay close attention to how this move works to realize which is the better recovery item. And in fact, I'll save you the math because I did it off stream. Big Root is a better healing item for Aqua Tail, even though Aqua Tail is an auto attack based ability. Why? It's because this right here, this ratio right here, it depends on what level you are. It depends on how many attack weight stacks you have. Obviously, this will change. But even if we look at the maximum amount of damage Aqua Tail does versus the healing that it provides at almost any level, right? You gain it at level 4, right? At any level from 4, 5, whatever, the healing is roughly 50% of the damage that you're dealing on the maximum damage tier, right? On the lower damage tiers, right? On the boosted close range, it's the same. On the basic long range, you heal for more damage you do, right? And yes, there's some crits that happen as well, right? There's things like crits, there's things like attack weight that can influence this as well. But when it's that much more healing than you gain from based on the damage you're dealing, the odds are, for the most part, Big Root's gonna be outperforming it. It's not gonna actually end up being that much because you also have auto attacks that aren't Aqua Tail. And yeah, when you're critting and hitting a lot of targets, you're gonna be getting, you know, Drain Crown might be doing a little bit better there. But there is one thing about Drain Crown and Lifesteal that I haven't mentioned yet, is that Lifesteal only gives you healing on damage you actually inflict to enemy health bars. So Lifesteal from Drain Crown or baseline Lifesteal will not heal if you're hitting a shielded target, because the game doesn't register that as you actually dealing damage. It's also damage that doesn't show up on your damage at the end of the game if you hit shielded people. So you gain no Lifesteal from that. But Aqua Tail, even if you're hitting a shielded target, will still heal you with this value here, right? Where Big Root will still be able to benefit you. So I would say if you want to play a recovery item, I would go with Big Root on Azu. I would stick away from playing both of them. I tried it. You're just gonna lack too much damage, right? The thing with Big Root and Drain Crown and these recovery based on damage items is you're playing like a balancing game, right? Where you have to balance a lever between how much damage you deal. That's the letter B. I almost just inflicted, what's the thing called? Insomnia? Dyslexia. Forgot how to spell. Versus healing, right? If you improve this value too much and you're not doing enough damage, it won't make sense because your healing is based on your damage. So I would only stick with one of them if you're gonna play it on a damage healer. So yeah, that covers it. I saw someone ask for Desi. I'm gonna do Desi, but we'll leave it at Desi because I want you to be able to do it yourself, right? It should be an easy thing. Open up Unite DB, check how much lifesteal it has. Desi's max lifesteal is 25%, right? Its moves don't give you any lifesteal, right? Razor Leaf doesn't give you any lifesteal. So the healing that you get is just this, right? Would you rather increase this value by 15 percentage points, so plus 15, or times 20%, right? And I already gave you the cheat code. You need to have at least 75% lifesteal, which, newsflash, no one in the game is gonna get to beat out the Drain Crown. So you need at least 75% for Desi. Big Root will give you an additional 5%, and Drain Crown will give you 15%. So Drain Crown should be much easier. All right, so let's go back to our slides here. So to summarize, right? Drain Crown will outperform Big Root on auto attackers that use lifesteal, with the exception being if your move has its own healing built into the damage, whether it's an auto attack, it's a boosted auto, whatever it is, then you might need to calculate more math, with an example being Azumarill. If you guys want to go ahead and do the math on your own, so some other ones that you could try, Dragon Knight, his water boosted healing is 5% of his max HP, which Drain Crown will work work on the life steal, but it won't improve that 5% max HP ing. So that's when you could try to calculate on your own. Again, I would refrain from playing both Big Root and Drain Crown. You want to improve your damage. More damage is more healing. If you play 2 healing items and you're not having a damage item, you also have to take down enemy Pokemon. So that covers Drain Crown. The other one that I think competes with Big Root is Resonant Guard. Resonant Guard more so on defenders, tanky recovery based Pokemon, things like that. So let's bust out our handy dandy sketch pad again. All right, let's do another Big Root drawing. This time I'll try to be better. I have the fill tool, I forgot. Oh, that's a much better one. And then let's draw a Resonant Guard. Isn't it just like, isn't it just that? I don't remember. I'm drawing from memory. Oh, that's a good Resonant Guard, right? It's like a kite. All right, so again, Big Root is plus 20% recovery. And now Resonant Guard. What does Resonant Guard do for those of you that don't remember? Resonant Guard, my drawing was pretty good, we'll highlight the relevant part. It's right here. So it gives you a shield equal to 6% of your max HP plus 100. But we're going to stick with the 6% of your max HP, right? The shield lasts for 3 seconds and it has a 10-second cooldown. And it gives it to a friend as well. So we'll do 6% max HP plus 100. For Big Root to outperform the guard, right? You need to recover more than 6% of your max HP plus 100 every 10 seconds. Right? And you also need to have been getting value with your Resonant Guard, as in your Resonant Guard needed to have actually prevented the damage. But let's just say, you know, you're in like a really long team fight. The Resonant Guard is always being broken. You need to be able to outperform this 6% HP every 10 seconds for Big Root to be better. And let's go with one of the best examples, like a Pokemon that has a lot of healing based on its max HP, which is Lapras. So Lapras, each boosted auto does 3.5% of its max HP per tick, and it does 3 ticks. So that gives you what, 10.5% max HP healing, right? 10.5% max HP healing. And this is every boosted auto, right? And you do a boosted auto obviously after every 2 hits, or automatically after Water Pulse. So for Lapras to outperform Resonant Guard, you would need to, how many auto attacks would you need, right? So your first auto is 10.5, and then it improves it by how much? 2.1. So you'd need at least 3, right? At least 3 boosted autos on Lapras to out heal Resonant Guard in a 10-second window. And this isn't accounting for the fact that Lapras also will be giving that 6% of its max HP to an ally in the middle of the fight. And Lapras will also have a way to mitigate anti-heal, which is a very popular item people are gonna equip into Lapras, right? So if the enemy team has anti-heal, then Resonant Guard is even better. Also, we talked about how shield interactions work, where shields don't actually make it so the enemy is dealing damage to you. So you're preventing some life steal on their end as well, which means that for the most part, if you're playing EXP share Lapras, I would say that Resonant Guard is probably just going to outperform Big Root. If you can manage in a team fight to get 4 boosted autos off in a 10-second window, any additional boosted auto after that means your Big Root gained value, right? At least for yourself. Otherwise, Resonant Guard is just generally going to be a better item. That being said, I really enjoy the item. I really have fun with Big Root. I'll be playing Big Root on Lapras still. And to make an argument in defense of Big Root on characters like Lapras, it's still gonna buff your potion. So if you're playing potion, automatically Big Root's gonna give you more value, right? Because let's look at potion healing. It's 20% of your max HP plus 160. So you're getting an additional 4% bonus right there every 30 seconds. So that's a bonus there. If you're playing Focus Band, it's gonna buff your Focus Band. The build I played in my last Lapras video literally was to make the most use out of Big Root. I played Focus, Shell Bell, which also buffs the Shell Bell healing, and Potion with Big Root. So if you play all of those in combination, Big Root will outperform. But if you're playing an EXP share Pokemon, one of your items is already EXP share. After that, there's so many good tank items, right? There's Assault Vest, Rocky Helmet, Resonant Guard, Buddy Barrier, even Score Shield or Aeos Cookie. A lot of different options. But if we want to look at a case where Big Root, I would say, will definitely outperform Resonant Guard, it would be Tree, right? Tree has so many different sources of healing. We're not gonna even get into how the passive works because who wants to even look at what this is, right? But it's a good amount from your passive. Your boosted auto is a 5%, so it's not as good as Lapras with 10.5 and free boosted autos, but it's something. And then the big part is the pain split, where you heal for, what is it, like a percentage, like a big percent of the damage you deal. It's like 100% of the damage you deal. Heal 134% of the damage dealt on each tick. So depending on how much damage you're doing, which depends on different increments, it'll be much better here. Or if you're playing Horn Leech, it'll buff these healing. And then the other thing Tree has is Tree actually has always had Big Root within its kit. Tree's ult gives you literally Big Root. It gives you big Root, where when you're shielded by Tree with your ult, your HP recovery effects are increased by 50%. So this value will go to 70% when you're playing Big Root on Tree. So I'd say that Tree could definitely use Big Root if you're playing a damage oriented build. Again, if you're playing EXP share though, chances are the other items will probably outperform it. IMO. Obviously. To summarize, for Big Root to outperform Resonant Guard, you must improve your healing by at least that value, 6% max HP plus 100 every 10 seconds. This isn't accounting for anti-heal. It's not accounting for the fact that you're also helping an ally. In short, Big Root is kind of big troll, but it's big fun, okay? You get big damage numbers. You get big healing numbers, and you get to justify running Potion Focus Band and being this unkillable monster. I would continue to run it and have fun with it on Scissor. I'll probably be playing it on Lapras. I'll probably be messing around with it on Azumarill for a little bit. Maybe Sylveon with the Draining Kiss build. But in more competitive situations, you're probably not going to see a whole lot of Big Root. Maybe Gudra. But yeah, thank you guys.